Hey, how's it going, folks? It's Zuko, and today we're unboxing some stuff, as you do on an anime figure channel. Today, I want to talk about a lot of Chainsaw Man stuff, but before we get there, I got a little pop-up parade for Ame-chan from Needy Streamer Overload or Needy Girl Overdose, whatever you want to call it. Both names are valid. Now, something I don't want to admit is that I've tried to film this video like 2 or 3 times, and for whatever reason, I just could not get through it. We're gonna finish this today for sure. Anyway, Needy Streamer. Very, very popular game. Honestly, it just surprises me how fast this franchise grew, how many people care about this little game, and as a result, we're getting a lot of figures now of not only K-Angel, but Ame-chan as well. But yeah, I've gone on record saying this, I do like Ame-chan's design a little bit more, I still do like both. Though at this point I can't say I'm as excited for this figure as I was when it went up for pre-order, just because now we have an Apex figure on the way, love the design of that one, and a Nendoroid, both which I would probably prefer over this. But you know what? I bought this, I'm gonna review it, and you know what? I think it's pretty good, especially for like 35 bucks. The main thing that really stands out to me here is that they actually shaded her hair. All of the pop-up parades I've opened so far don't have hair shading, but this one actually does. There's like 2 tones of blue within her hair sculpt. And it's not like I have high expectations for a pop-up parade or anything, but I do like when they kind of exceed how I was expecting the figure to turn out, or at the very least give me a figure that is presentable without many issues. Like the paint job isn't really going to impress on her outfit, but it's a nice combination of black, red, and white with some gold accents thanks to the gold pattern on the dress, and the hair clip, and the buckles and buttons around her waist. Her eye decals are nicely printed, the mouth has some nice definition to it. They've also made her boots glossy, which look really nice, as well as the shoelaces, which normally I would probably like nitpick a little bit, just because they should differentiate the finishes down here, but it's 30 bucks. I'm not expecting that. They've also painted her nails, both black and red, which I really like. Now it is a little sloppy, but the figure's so small. Wasn't really expecting this to have the nicest nails, but the fact that they did it is definitely good enough for me. Oh, and I think her pose is pretty cute too. She's hiding her cell phone behind her back. She's also like pressing her arm into the dress just slightly so that the clothing isn't so static. But you want to know what the most impressive part of this figure is, or at the very least the most like unexpected. It's her underwear. Her pantsu are just so detailed and dainty and frilly. On a scale figure, this is probably something you would expect, but not on a pop-up parade. But Good Smile Company just cared, I guess. They really wanted to sculpt this for whatever reason. And you know what? Honestly, looks great. So overall, figure looks pretty nice for the price. The only issue I really found, at least on my copy, is that running down one of her arms is a pretty bad seam line. And while you won't see that from afar, if you're ever looking at this figure up close, I do think it's a little bit unsightly and unfortunately does take away from just like the appeal of this figure just a little bit. But if you could forgive that, then I do think this is a very solid little figure. Almost forgot though, I did pre-order this from the Good Smile Global store, no actually the US store, and with it came a pre-order bonus for the little sad cat figure. I think this one is called the That's Awesome version. I would just be straight up lying if I said that wasn't a reason I pre-ordered this figure in the first place. I really like these sad cat stickers that are featured within the game. Honestly, I think Good Smile Company should just like put these in a blind box series, like make 10, 12 of them or something, and then just sell them like that. I think that's a good idea. If you want to take my idea, Good Smile Company, you go for it. I think a lot of people would buy into that. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this figure. I'm gonna go grab another one to continue the video. Alright, so I'm gonna make a slight pivot here. We're gonna talk about Estelle Bright, made by Kotoba from the Kiseki series. Now, I don't know which design this outfit for Estelle is from. I know she's from like the first 3 games, but I haven't played the series at all. So why am I talking about this? Well, my girlfriend bought it. And I figured since I haven't made a video like this in a while, why not just make it bigger? So we're doing like 5 figures today instead of 4 that was originally planned. But yeah, Estelle Bright. I haven't played any of these games. I will eventually. Just been not on a video game kick lately. Honestly, I've been watching anime lately. Some new stuff, some old stuff, just catching up in general. Yes, I've never seen Lycoris Recoil. Yes, I've never seen Yudo Camp, but I have now. So we're good. Yeah, this figure was about 19,000 yen, I believe. I do not have the bonus faceplate. I do feel like I would have liked it a little bit more. It's a bit more expressive as she's shouting, rather than just this like gentle smile, which is cute. She's got a cute face, and I like her really bright red eyes. But I do think there's like a bit of stiffness behind this expression that would have been alleviated if I had that bonus faceplate. Sorry for skipping the unboxing on this one, but the assembly was very straightforward. All you really have to do is plug her into the base, and then plug the staff into one of her hands. She's very stable. She does not move at all, which is great. And while the base is very simplistic, I do rather like it. The color is great. I believe this art of the sky and then like something in the background is taken straight from the first game's box art, which is a lovely piece of art, so it just makes sense that it's here. So like most Kotoba figures, the paint job is very straightforward. It's clean in execution, there's very little blemishes to be found, but also not that much shading, especially when you look at areas like her outfit or her hair. Like, it's one shade of brown for the most part, and then you might get like a slightly darker shade around the hair clips or the individual strands that are sculpted in. Though the sculpt itself for these twin tails has a really nice sense of flow and movement. They're so thin and airy. And her hair matches up alongside nicely with her pose, which is like a battle-ready stance, how she's gripping onto the staff as if she was ready to swing the thing. The care and effort that Kotoba clearly put into her fingers really shouldn't be overlooked. That's probably one of my favorite parts about this figure, honestly. And the staff has some really nice colors, primarily that like red, shiny metallic paint, and then silver on each end. What I think this figure kinda needed, at least in my opinion, were some different finishes or textures for her outfit. Her entire outfit, outside of the silver pieces that you're seeing, like on the shoulder pad, or the hair clips, or the little bits around the skirt, like those are probably supposed to be metal if this outfit were real, but everything else just looks very soft, right? And there's no differentiating like the fabric or the leather, and I really wish that they would go like the extra mile just to make them look a little bit different. Not expecting anything crazy here, but when a figure costs around 20,000 yen, I think it's time to start doing a little bit of texturing work. So that would have been nice to see. But certainly her outfit, overall, as a JRPG fan, I think is fantastic. Not the biggest fan, I guess, of like this color scheme. The teal accents are kind of throwing me off a little bit, but it's certainly a pretty interesting palette, and I do find this figure to be a little refreshing as a result. I do like this one. I like her thigh highs, I like her boots, I think they're cute. Her really airy twin tails are probably my favorite part. I think I said that earlier. I wish this was a little bit cheaper. You probably could have found it cheaper if you bought it from like Ami or something. But for 19,000 yen, I do feel like they could have went a little bit farther, but if you're a fan of the series, you probably love this. Honestly, I like it, and I don't know this character yet. So I'm gonna say good job. Just a couple of things could have made this even better. Alrighty, it is time to talk about some Chainsaw Man. Now, no Denji today. I already talked about his figure a while ago for me stream. We got 3 to unbox today, including a new power figure that I'm hoping I like more than the last one, but we'll get to that right after this. Makima from Eastream. Now, as you can see, already unboxed her, which I want to know, how much do you guys care about the unboxing process in these videos? I guess specifically mine, because everybody does it differently. I will say though, I did actually record myself unboxing these figures when I filmed this the first time, so I could at least use that now if I need to. She is a 1/7 scale, pretty good size. I will do a size comparison of all 3 that I unboxed today at the end, but yeah, very expensive, like 28,000 yen or so. Way too much money, if you ask me. This figure should not cost 28,000 yen. I do really like it though, and Makima has been an unfortunate case of just not really having a lot of solid options, despite having a lot of options in general. She gets a ton of figures, prize figures and scales and stuff like that, probably a ton of resins too, which I don't really look into, but a lot of them don't really look like her. This is the first time where I saw a figure of Makima, and I'm like, oh shit, this is Makima. This is something I want in my collection. Now, does this live up to the hype? In my opinion, yes, for the most part. They missed a couple of notes here and there, which we'll get to in a second, but what they needed to accomplish, I think they definitely did. This is a very cool and accurate looking Makima. Clearly, like right after fighting something, the aftermath of a bloodbath, right? And she certainly seems pretty satisfied with the outcome. The big thing to note here, which I'm sure you've obviously noticed by now, is that she is just covered, drenched in blood. And I think it looks phenomenal, like just the varying degrees of blood depending on where you look on the shirt, or the pants, or even the shoes, right? There's just like different techniques and brushes used here to make this as effective and realistic as possible. Even the base has a ton of this blood. It looks just as good down here, as if something was like crushed underneath this one stone block. It's awesome. She's throwing on her trench coat, looking super cool while doing it, just walking away. And speaking of her trench coat, I honestly think it looks a little bit better than I was expecting. Not that I thought it looked bad. It looks simplistic. It's a black trench coat, not that much you could do with it. The sculpt I always thought looked great as she was pulling her arm through the sleeve, bunching it up a little bit, the back billowing out as she's walking away from the fight. But the inside of the trench coat is where I want to bring your attention because they painted it differently from the outside. It looks a little bit like silk or velvet or some kind of like premium material to make the jacket look a little bit more realistic and also a little bit more expensive, which just makes the trench coat that much better. That like slight shimmer on the inside really goes a long way in my opinion. Another great part of this figure is, of course, her face. Her eyes look absolutely perfect, the color of yellow, the eyelashes, mouth is nicely sculpted, the nose as well. She did come with a bonus faceplate if you bought her from the Eastream store or like Shibuya Scramble store, which I am lucky enough to own, though unfortunately, I'm not actually the biggest fan of it. It looked a lot better when they first revealed it. She had this really sinister look, which was just like a chef's kiss, perfect kind of faceplate for her. But yeah, I don't know, something changed along the ways. It doesn't really look like that anymore to me. If anything, it looks like she has bedroom eyes, which might be a plus for you, but not really for me. This wasn't really what I was expecting, not really what I wanted. So yeah, you probably don't need it. If you like it though, who am I to judge? Go for it. But I do feel like it's not as advertised, so I'm a little disappointed there. I'm also a little bit disappointed by her hair. While I do like the color of it, I do like the shading, and I do like the details of the ponytail, the braid, I just wish her bangs looked a little bit better, because as it stands, things are very simplistic up here. Not that much sculpting detail went into her hair sculpt in the front, and I feel like that's a little disappointing considering the figure is super expensive. Now, do I think it looks that bad? Not really. It looks fine, but something that costs that much money shouldn't just look fine. It should look great. It should look fantastic, and that's definitely one aspect of the figure that brings it down slightly. Also, I'm just gonna say it, one of her faceplates should have absolutely had blood on it. I don't know how they didn't think of that, considering everything else on Makima is covered in blood. So why not her face? Regardless though, I think she looks fantastic, and certainly, at the moment, is the best Makima figure. It's a little bit too expensive, and it's certainly not perfect, but I think they did a great job here. The paint, the shading, the composition, the idea behind this one, just fully realizing Makima's character outside of that bonus faceplate. I would give it a recommendation if you do like Makima and you're looking to add a figure of her to your collection. So, next up, we got a figure from a company that I've never taken a look at before, and it's probably the headliner for this video, the most, important one, or the one I title the video around. It is, in fact, the S-Fire Power figure. You know, I feel like I really haven't heard a lot about this figure. Not too many pre-ordered it, from what I can tell, haven't seen many reviews, and that leaves me in a unique position, I guess, to finally, weigh in on this one. Now, I do want to say I didn't buy this just as like a response to not liking the Amakuni one as much as I was hoping to, and I still like that figure at the end of the day. But yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that I pre-ordered both of them at around the same time, but it just so happened that the S-Fire figure came out a little bit after the Amakuni one. Now, as far as this figure is concerned, the assembly, pretty bad. It took me about 20 minutes or so to put this figure together. They give you instructions, there's like 10 swords and the spear that you have to fit into this base, and it takes quite a long time to figure out like exactly how you're supposed to angle it. Not the worst thing ever, and it does make sense that they did it this way, because if it was all like assembled and then they shipped it out, there would have been so many broken pieces. So it's like a necessary evil, right? The figure is very heavy though, super solid. She was attached to the base out of the box, so you don't have to put her on, which is great. You don't have to worry about that. No wobble whatsoever. And something that I really like about this figure that I never see other figures do is that under the base, there's like these little soft stoppers that help her from like sliding all over the table. She will, of course, if you do slide her, but it does just give it a little bit more resistance and helps the figure's just overall stability. Seems like a great idea that nobody else does, so kudos to them. I really do like that. There is a sense of familiarity here in terms of how power is posed in comparison to the Amakuni version, both of them featuring a giant hammer that she's leaning against with one hand on the handle. But they're differently executed. They don't really feel the same because of their expressiveness and the direction the companies took with each sculpt. Like on the Amakuni version, kind of feels like Power is just over it. She wants to go home, she's bored. But with S-Fire, feels like the party's about to get started. It's so much more fantastical in its approach because of all of these weapons surrounding her. Really feels like a weapon graveyard to me, and I'll get to that in a second, but also the ground is just smashed into these large concrete chunks. The whole base feels very exaggerated and like anime in its approach, whereas the Amakuni version felt a lot more realistic. And I'm not saying that's better or worse, but I do feel like something's missing on the S-Fire figure to make it more believable, and I think it's the lack of blood. There's no blood on any of the concrete stones, nor the weapons themselves, so it just makes it feel like nothing has actually happened in this scene. It's not as believable as the Amakuni version, where that hammer clearly did some damage. This is so much more chaotic and just like energetic that you might like this approach way more. If anything, this really reminds me of like a resin figure and their approach to sculpting just like bases and incorporating them into the character design. So there's tons of merit to this as well. But ultimately what matters most is the sculpts and the paint, and honestly speaking, I think this looks a little bit better than I was expecting. Like, all of those blood weapons have a really nice shiny metallic red paint, which looks so much better than the promo photos. I thought they were going to be like kind of flimsy looking plastic, but looks really nice here, and they're all textured to look like stone, just like on the Amakuni version, but because there's so much more, it leaves a bigger impression on you. But yeah, the colors down here are fantastic, and I could say the same thing for her outfit, which I was also not expecting to look as nice as it does. Specifically, the blue jacket impresses me the most. I just wasn't expecting this like level of shading on the jacket. Her shoes also do look pretty good. They're heavily shaded on the white portions, but there is like a lack of stitching that the Amakuni version had that I do miss. And her shoelaces are so thick that they almost look like ribbons or bow ties, not really like shoelaces, and it kind of throws me off a little bit. But the rest of the outfit certainly picks up the slack, and there's a lot more dynamism to this sculpt thanks to the clothing, like the jacket billowing a little bit, tie is flowing off to the side, her shirt isn't really tucked in, which just makes everything look super messy, but that's also more impressive in terms of sculpting. Plus, this sloppiness just feels totally in character for Power, which I think is a huge strength of this scale. Not that the Amakuni one didn't have this, but the personality for Power is fully realized here, not only in the pose, which feels pretty strong, I would say powerful, but that's a crappy pun, but also her face. Her expression is perfect. I love the stylized eye decals, and her teeth are nice and sharp, as they should be. It's a very confident and arrogant grin. It's the Power that you know and you love. And not only is her face this good, but you also got Meowie right there next to it. I love that Meowie is not only included in this figure, but also so close to Power's face that you're always gonna notice Meowie. And the sculpt's pretty good for Meowie too. There's like a fur-like texture running throughout, and Meowie's face is adorable, as you would expect. And then there's Power's hair, which is very voluminous in its approach. I think it's wonderful looking. They went with a light blonde as the main color, but there really isn't that much gradation or shading to be found here, just a little bit by the tips, which I find slightly disappointing. Not that it's bad, certainly not, but I feel like they could have went a little bit farther in terms of the colors. Unfortunately, there are a couple of quality control issues here, nothing major, but I do want to point them out, like the scratch on the front of the hammer, a little white spot on her pants doesn't come off, and then on her hair, there's a gray area, which seems like the yellow paint got scratched off at some point. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it, but I do want to answer the question, is this better or worse than the Amakuni version? In my opinion, the Amakuni version has higher highs, but I feel like this one, despite the quality control issues, is a little bit like more balanced. It's less offensive, it's less to like really disappoint people, and I feel like at the end of the day, like a normal collector who just wants one Power figure would probably like this one a little bit more, unless they just vastly prefer the outfit, like the casual clothes that the Amakuni figure is wearing. I do wonder though how this one's going to fare on the aftermarket though, because while both the Amakuni and S-Fire versions were exclusive, they were exclusive to different stores, and it seems like the Amakuni version, which was Ami exclusive, is still very easy to find, and also a lot cheaper if you get it pre-owned. Whereas this S-Fire figure, I haven't really seen it available anywhere, at least right now. So yeah, I guess I like the S-Fire version just a little bit more. Alright, last up, let's talk about Aki from Mythos, another company that I don't think I've ever really reviewed on this channel. Certainly a very popular brand, but they just don't really make a lot of figures that I'm personally interested in. In fact, this one's not mine either. I'm borrowing it again. So I got an opportunity to talk about this guy that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Now, he came out a while ago. I think like the beginning of this year, maybe like the end of last year. Very expensive for a Mythos figure, around like 26,000 yen if I recall. He's certainly a lot cheaper now though. I've seen him go for like 15,000 yen, which is so much more affordable. Kind of ridiculous considering the popularity of Chainsaw Man. But at the same time, a lot of Chainsaw Man figures do drop in price. Most likely because they overcharge for them. But what can you do? That's just the way the license works, I suppose. The assembly for Aki is very straightforward because he has magnets in his feet, so you place one on the floorboards, one on the zombie, and then you place the office chair underneath him. He also comes with a katana that you place into the ground, and then he also came with his sheath, and for the longest time I had no idea what you were supposed to do with this piece, but you actually just slide it into his back because of the holster, and you're good to go. Now all three of these figures are 1/7 scales, but Aki seems a little bit smaller than the other two, obviously ignoring the fact that he is sitting down. I just mean like the size of his body and head feels a little bit off in comparison to the other two. Now these are all made by different companies, so they weren't going to be perfect, but I don't know, it feels a little off to me and kind of bugs me just slightly. Now, while this isn't my favorite figure of the bunch just due to like character bias, I like Power and Makima a little bit more, I gotta say the composition just feels the most thought out for this Aki figure. Like the idea is the best between all three of these figures. I just really like this approach of the day in the life of Aki, the devil hunter side of Chainsaw Man. This just feels almost real. Aki is tired. He's tired of dealing with Power. He's tired of dealing with Denji. He just got done hacking up some zombies. He needs a break. He's ready to clock out. Took out a cigarette, sitting down, doing a little bit of man-spreading. We can forgive him for that. This dude is covered in blood, just like Makima, and you can just feel the wariness in his expression, in his pose. Mythos did a great job here. This is very impressive to me. I even like the way they sculpted his jacket slung over the office chair as if it's like part of his daily routine. Feels very relatable, just like the way it's kind of set up here. I really dig it. I don't know what else to say. I think this has like perfect composition as far as like an Aki figure goes. Now, he is covered in blood, just like the Makima figure. It's a bit of a different approach, a little bit more simplistic if I had to say anything, just because all the stains feel very similar to each other. It's a very bright red this time, which feels a little bit less realistic, but at the same time, his hands and his neck and his ear are also covered in blood, and that looks amazing. That is like super good. Something that I was wishing was on the Makima figure. Yet it's here on the Aki one, so I gotta give it points for that. That looks phenomenal. The blood also extends to the base, of course, these creaky floorboards, and it's covered in this very fresh, glossy looking blood. I mean, this is a pretty grotesque base when you get down to it because of the torsos all hacked up, couple of limbs here and there. Pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool in the rundown environment. Whatever building they're fighting in, could be a shack for all I know. Just looks disgusting, right? You wouldn't want to be here. I do wish the zombies or the devils, whatever you call them, looked a little bit more leathery or maybe like crispy, if I could use a different word. They look a little bit too smooth for my liking as far as like a zombie sculpt is concerned, but I mean, it's a PVC scale figure for like $200 and there's like technically enough plastic here for 2 characters. So I think it's okay to cut corners on like the zombie aspect of the figure. It still looks gross, don't get me wrong, and I like how they're all set up just like laid out on the floor dead, but I think it could have looked slightly better. I think the shading for the most part looks pretty good, not amazing, but definitely gets the job done. Kind of reminds me of Kotobukiya, just like a little bit better. Like if you looked at his shirt, if there wasn't any blood on his shirt, it would just be one color of white. It would be very flat. His pants look a little bit better though, and his hair looks very solid. I have no complaints about his hair. I do wish, considering that his face looks very similar to the anime's art style, that they would have given us his hair down as an option. I feel like a lot of people would have liked that. Like the vision of this figure is very apparent to me. You're honing in on the attractive aspects of Aki, something that not every other company is going to do. And that's gonna make a ton of people happy, which is fantastic. But you're so close to making the absolute perfect Aki figure, and you just stop short. However, it is fine as is, so let me just shut the hell up. So yeah, I think this one's fantastic too. The sculpting detail and the idea behind this one are the real strong suits of this figure. Certainly the paint is great as well, though I do think it holds it back a little bit from being like a 10 out of 10 godly figure, but still very impressive. And I think anybody who likes Aki would love to have this. So there is our video for the day. 5 figures, only got 3 of them in front of me right now, but hopefully you guys enjoyed. Look forward to the next one, though the next unboxing will not be for a couple of weeks because we got One Fest coming up, got the pre-order roundup, but right after that, we got a banger-ass video heading your way. So thank you very much for watching, really do appreciate it. Subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you guys very soon for the next one. Later.